Hi, I'm Mark Wybrow, and this is a very special Electronic Cafe, the channel for the lovers of electronic music.
And I'm Andy McNabb. So, let's get started. So welcome to this very special edition of the Electronic Cafe. It's the second interview special that we're doing this year. As you know, the last episode we had Jeff Hartford, the mighty Atlas, and what a fantastic experience that was. For this interview, just amazing again. Mark and I were fortunate enough to meet Paula, Sean and Eugene, known as the Tiny Magnetic Pets, based over in Ireland. Three of the nicest people. You can never meet three nicer people in your life. They were just absolutely fantastic. Amazing conversation. I just wish we could have done it in a pub because we'll probably still be talking right now. But yeah, really good. And you'll see we're going to do two parts of this interview. We think that they deserve to have two editions dedicated to them because they're a great band. Done some amazing stuff, as you know. They've supported Mid-Year, OMD, etc., and are truly lauded by some of the godfathers of electronic music. So enjoy that. A bit later on in the show, me and Mark are going to do a hot stuff section. We want to keep you up to date with some of the hot music we're listening to that you can check out and put it on your turntable, and hope you enjoy. So enjoy, as I say, this fantastic interview with the lovely Tiny Magnetic Pets. So thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope you guys do too.
Tiny Magnetic Pets are the brilliant electronic three-piece formed in Dublin in 2009, named after the collectible Japanese toys. Tiny Magnetic Pets are amongst the finest electronic bands to have emerged in recent years, and their music is a combination of retro synths with great songs and great production. And they share a fascination for the classic albums of the late 70s and early 80s, such as Bowie's Berlin Trilogy, Gary Numan's Pleasure Principle, and of course Kraftwerk's Computer World. They have released 3 albums, 1 live album and a number of EPs. They have collaborated with Wolfgang Flür from Kraftwerk, and they have toured supporting both Mid-Year and OMD. If you don't know Tiny Magnetic Pets, you really do need to investigate. They're a breath of fresh air and also fantastic people to boot. Here's the first part of our conversation with Tiny Magnetic Pets. Enjoy.
So welcome everyone to another special edition of our interview series we're doing for Electronic Cafe. As you know, recently we published our Atlas edition, and today we are joined by the amazing Tiny Magnetic Pets. Delighted to have you guys into Electronic Cafe. Great to have you here.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Cheers, Eugene.
Cheers, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers. The other thing is to say, this I love. It's just come out. Congrats. Amazing album. I've been fans of you for a few years now. I mentioned earlier through our mutual friend, Mr. Egan, Rusty Egan. I bought everything you guys have done, but I think for me, this is the best album you've done yet. I love every track. I think it's so strong. I also, there seems to be more light and dark in this album. Was there anything different in the process, guys, when you made this, or that?
All the really bad stuff that was surrounding that. It was just like kind of a bleak kind of year, and we had what was going to be our third album, more or less ready for release in 2020, called The Point of Collapse.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of big, kind of double album thing. But because of COVID, all our plans and all our touring plans for 2020 just went down the toilet after. I mean, it started off brilliant with the Midge tour of the UK, which our first date was exactly a year ago.
Yeah, we were lucky we had that, actually.
Yeah. And so everything after that just went. We had all these plans. We had all these connections in Germany, etc., for tours, etc., and then suddenly it was all gone. Everything's like that. The album was kind of basically postponed. So we were just basically, I think I can speak for all of us when I can say we all went on a bit of a flipping downer for a few weeks, and I came up with the idea of doing another EP. And we only had, at that point, we'd only one kind of song, kind of more or less, kind of ready or in the works, which was 12 and a half minutes long, which is an EP in itself. So we just added we'd written another couple of songs for it. So then it was going to be a mini album instead of an EP. And then, the fact that we all write, people just kept adding stuff because we had nothing better to do. And we ended up with the album, and it is it's darker, and there is kind of light and shade, because I think that is kind of reflecting basically our everyday lives. 1 minute you're kind of up, and then you're down, and then you kind of you're locked down, you're out, but you can't really go very far. You go out somewhere, everywhere's closed, everywhere you can't play gigs. And Paula says in the press release, Paula had actually said, whenever we were going to do the EP, we're not writing anything about lockdown or COVID-19, but invariably it all kind of seeped into the lyrics of what we were doing. So, and it's
a lot of it wasn't intentional. It was just, it felt.
Just flowed that way.
Yeah, it was your moods, it was your emotions that was reflected in the songs, I think, like Drowning in Indigo, or so. It wasn't specifically written about lockdown, but it was the way we were feeling. We were feeling claustrophobic. We were all in each other's studios. We were used to being together so much for the last year and whatever. So it definitely, as Sean said, it seeped into the lyrics and the mood of the songs. But I mean, there's some upbeat stuff there as well, and Test Card Freaks and that. So we're still, it's a journey. The whole album, I think, is a journey. It ends sort of with a bit of a chill out tune, Mid-Atlantic Drift. So
that's great. It's really well textured.
I mean, I agree with Andy. I think, I've got all your stuff. I think it's the best thing you've done.
Thank you very much.
And I mean, you Paula, you said you all wrote it separately. I mean, was you just sending each other messages, or how was that?
Yeah, that's how it worked basically. Because we all write in our own studios, so we'd send each other an idea. An idea'd come in, we'd change it about. Somebody give another idea, and it just became the thing. So and it's like we work well together, and we never take anything negatively on board. It's just a workflow, and it works. It's just our process. Don't ask me how a song begins or starts or ends, but it just does.
It could be a word, you know what I mean? And I mean, all Eugene did, as we all did stuff separately in the studios. I did all the vocals upstairs here. Wow. So we were bouncing them back and forth, and then we got it mixed, which we hadn't done on the previous albums. We got it mixed in London by Charles Shicky Reeves, who's done a lot of work with big artists, and I think that worked very well as well. We did a real-time mixing, which is something we'd never done or experienced before. Yeah. So the four of us were in different places, all plugged in. Like I was walking down the pier at one stage, and it was real time. So you push the vocal up a little bit, you lower this, and it was done in real time. That was quite amazing to do, something we'd never done before. So four of us mixing, London, and then four of us in Ireland. So I think that really worked actually. And but we did go for a slightly varied sound, as I said, unintentional. It's just what came out. But
you might never have to meet each other ever again. It was so successful the way you worked.
You don't again have to spend a long time on a tour bus. Thank you.
But when you did your parts, did you just do your parts and then send it to the rest of the band, or did you kind of speak about what you was gonna do, or was it a surprise for people?
Sean and I normally work on, well, I'll just speak from the vocal point of view. I mean, I played a bit of the synths and obviously some of the melodies on the album, but from a vocal point of view, I would record them here. Sean and I are generally in tune for vocals, and we'd kind of be on the same wavelength. So most of the time it was perfect. And Sean put down a harmony and send it back. I might alter something, might change a melody and something, so we'd redo it. It just, I don't know. We're very lucky. It really works with this all. There's very, if ever.
You see the chemistry with you three when I see you live, but actually that obviously resonates when you're not together. There's still that connection. It comes through really on this.
We're best mates. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'd be lost without them. So.
What we do as well is nothing gets, when someone kind of contributes an idea or someone adds to one of someone else's ideas, we kind of just, rather than go, no, I don't think that's working or whatever, you kind of analyze why the other person.
Eugene grinning.
You let that take you where that's going, rather than writing it off. You kind of like work with it. And you know, I mean, I'm probably guilty more than the rest of them, because every time someone else presents an idea and I listen to it, I end up going, oh, what are they doing? And then just go along with it. And then it all kind of, it then kind of morphs into what it is. And Blue Wave, for example, was just a.
But even we know when something doesn't work, don't we? You know, somebody's gonna go, we might all go, yeah, and then like kind of go, I'm not feeling that, and he'll be like, yeah, I'm on the same. I don't think if ever there's been a time where we've kind of gone, someone's really been sulking over something. I don't think. Maybe Sean a few times.
I usually sulk for something I've written and it turns out to be rubbish. And Paula's going, no, I really like this. This is good. And there was one on the point of collapse where I actually had to beg. I had to kind of like barter to get something that I'd written absolutely removed and stomped on with extreme prejudice. That is old.
We do tend to do this thing where I'll give you that. And that does work. Sometimes Sean and Eugene might agree on something, I'll go, you know, or that does work a lot with, I'll give you that one. But then like I might have something up my sleeve and we were mixing that I knew I was going to use on the next song, go, oh, I want that one. And it does work. You know, I don't know if Sean fiddles stuff with the producers behind our behind our backs, I don't know. But it does work. And Eugene's a quiet one.
Are you guys, I mean, you're obviously very close friends, but how did you guys connect? Have you been lifelong friends, or it just story in terms of you three coming together?
We nicked Eugene off another band. And myself and Paula met a few years ago through a mutual friend. And it was, there was some kind of chemistry there, which was kind of interesting. But it took a while to actually, we didn't really get kind of moving. We didn't really solidify, gel as a band. The first album was just a studio project with myself and Paula. And then Eugene came along and he played a gig with us. And then later on, we had this, we were doing this single. And Eugene did a remix of it, and we kind of realized that Eugene's remix was far better than the actual single itself. So we pulled the single, and basically we asked Eugene to join the band because not only because of his drumming abilities, but also his writing abilities as well. Which was, when we heard what he did to that song, which actually ended up as All the Mad Things. That's what got Eugene into the band when he did that initially. It only got released in 2019, but it was because you had to find the right vehicle for it.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that's kind of how we met. We never knew each other.
Eugene disappeared on us there.
Yeah.
He's got the like those two are talking again.
Oh, he's back. We got him. We got him
Eugene,
back.
I'm gonna let you speak for a while because he, as per usual, Sean and myself are.
That's it.
I-
Next question for Eugene.
Give up everything to be with you. But this is not a song to make you cry. I did not write this song to make you cry.
Okay, all right. I'll aim straight at you, Eugene. So obviously you can hear some influences in your music like Kraftwerk, New Order, Ultravox. It's really interesting. The reason I put this to you guys, so when we interviewed Rusty, I asked him about his favourite desert island disc, which I'd love to ask you guys later. But when he told me it was Van Morrison, if you'd asked me to bet my house, I would have said Radioactivity or Trans-Europe Express by Kraftwerk, right? We interviewed Atlas, and I don't know if you heard his work, but he's on the Dead Mouse label. He's very DJ sort of electronic, great sound, great artist. But again, if you said to me what's inspired, I would have said, Prodigy, Moby. But he started talking about Gordon Lightfoot and all this other stuff. So I'm thinking, yeah, Miles Davis. I'm thinking, I know obviously you can hear the influence of Kraftwerk, etc. from you guys, which is great. But who else do you feel sort of influenced your music sort of direction?
Definitely David Bowie. There's no doubt about that for us. Three of us are very, very big David Bowie fans. His earlier stuff. Eugene, would you add anybody else?
Yeah, well, I'm a big ska head from when I was a kid. So I love the Specials. I love Madness. Yeah. That's where my drumming comes into play. I like those styles of beats. I love big beat stuff. I love Massive Attack. My all-time favorite band is Depeche Mode. I love the Smiths. It's a wide Eno, you name it. I don't know where. There's not one particular band or sound I love, but I take influences from everything.
Yeah, you can hear it as well. Actually,
well, I said in one of our earlier interviews. I mean, me and Andy was in bands years ago, and we played London stuff, and I was quite snobby years ago that if it didn't have a synthesizer in it, I kind of dismissed it.
I'm still like, I when I was a kid, I wouldn't buy a record if there were no synthesizers.
Well, exactly. And then after that, sort of like 10 or 15 years later, I get into the Police and the Smiths and, all those bands. And you think, I dismissed so much stuff early on just because I was like, Depeche Mode, Soft Cell, Gary Newman, Human League, Heaven 17, all those Kraftwerk, all those electric bands was just like my thing. Yeah. And I dismissed a lot of like good music. But, everyone's got these influences and subliminally they come into the writing. So, you don't set out to write a song that perhaps sounds Kraftwerk or Depeche Mode, but it just comes out in your DNA.
I think as well for us, we run tour so much with, I'm not saying it, it's, I guess the sound did influence whether you knew it or not. We listened to OMD and Major so many times from sound checks to the shows. I mean, I'm sure that's got to have had a little bit of influence whether we knew it or not into this new album. I mean, I think maybe with Midge and that sounded a little bit harder, so maybe that has come across, or it's harder, a little bit darker and edgier, I think, this album.
Sorry, the thing about this, you mentioned Midge there, the thing about Ultravox is, as well as that, Midge is into kind of progressive rock and things like that. You can actually hear it. I heard it in Ultravox. I only got into Ultravox because, and Visage to a certain, and Gary Newman to a certain extent as well, because they had a keyboard player who played violin, just like my favorite band, King Crimson.
Billy Curry.
And that's one of the reasons I kind of got into that kind of thing. And you can hear it actually comes into if you listen to Semaphore, the middle bit where it quietens down, that is like 100% pure yes. Swap Paula's vocal out for John Anderson. The middle of a kick in it. you know, close to the edge or something, right?
Yeah.
Kind of up there, but I mean, you know, it's that kind of, but it wasn't intentional. It kind of it seeps in, and all these things kind of roll into what you're doing. The same with like Eugene ska beats and things like that. We've got a few things where Eugene's really scanning the drums up. He's really taking it down to Trench Town. But yeah, or just normally down Rio. But you know, the Trench Town ones need to come out. The Trench Town sessions need to happen. The Studio One bits. But you know, it's something we'll probably explore kind of a bit more as well, because let's say they just slide out. You don't know it's happening. You don't notice it. It's only whenever other people point it out, or maybe you notice it after the fact. But that's what makes it kind of exciting. You don't know where it's coming.
Sometimes when you get comparisons, you're like, "What? I didn't hear that." And people kind of go, "It sounds like this, sounds like that," and kind of gone.
Yeah, it's very subjective, isn't it?
Recently, you must listen to 9 Inch Nails or something. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I didn't get that one myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get that there.
A few of those, but people hear. I mean, that's what music is. People hear what they want to hear, and whatever.
But when you supported Midge and OMD, I mean, they were, you know, they're great artists, and you was up close and personal with those guys, sound checks and seeing their sets. What's your favourite, like Midge Ultra Rock song or OMD song, or what song do you know, I can listen to an Ola Gay or any of those old songs, and they still sound, they haven't dated at all, really.
No.
No, you're right.
Astrodyne is pretty amazing live.
Astrodyne.
It's pretty incredible, and Vienna, obviously.
I think that's one of my favourite Ultra Rock songs. I when I saw them live, to come on and for Billy Currie to open with that song, because as a keyboard player, you like to be a little bit nimble to start with, and to open with the keyboard line on Astrodyne, when they started with that, I just thought, that's a brave one. but that's one of the great instrumentals, I think.
Yeah.
And the light sequence were incredible with it as well. So that definitely, obviously Vienna goes without saying. You never tire of that song. OMD, some of their new stuff was really good, Sean, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Luxury. Yeah, it was really good. But God, they have just too many songs.
Yeah, talking of heroes, so you Wolfgang Fleur was on one of your albums. How did that happen? I mean, for me, krautrock, just the legends, the gods, you know. I don't know how you felt about that.
We were lucky enough to support Wolfgang in Voodoo in Dublin.
Yeah,
and like we got offered that gig, and just to meet him, he's a funny person, and you know, he's a character. Yeah. But so we did that gig. Basically, had a great night, got a good response, and then a day later, Una, we decided let's see, would he work with us on Deluxe, and so we just asked the question. He said yes, and the rest is history. But the fact that he played since on Never Alone, and then you know, Radio On did the vocal as well, and like just to see his name on our album, you kind of go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Was it like that? Was it like that when you met him though as well? Because because you meet a lot of people, but then you meet Wolfgang Fleur and you just think, shit, he was in Kraftwerk.
I mean, actually, it sounds terrible. We actually couldn't get rid of him. He kept turning up at our
Hey, Wolfgang, your time's up, mate.
Right.
And kind of most electronic musicians that you meet that we've met are all really down to earth. I mean, you meet all these people and they're all legends. And I mean, I've kind of played in rock bands and toured with rock bands and things, and you know, a lot of them think they're it. Whereas with electronic musicians, any that I've met, no matter how big they are, they're just ordinary kind of people, and they're unassuming. They kind of chat to you, and you can have a laugh. And Wolfgang in particular, the strange thing is, somebody like Wolfgang was exactly how I imagined he would be.
Oh, really?
I used to, as a kid, I used to look at these Kraftwerk records and listen to them and just look at the pictures and go, nah, these guys are having a laugh. This is so tongue in cheek. I mean, the music's fantastic. It's brilliant. But, you can tell that once the cameras were switched off, they all fell about laughing. Even the cover of Trans Europe Express, I remember and there was something that there was an interview with, I think it's in Wolfgang's book, where they were talking about the photograph on the cover of Trans Europe Express, which is like 4 comp images together. And the thing that always kind of stuck out for me on that cover was the size of Florian's head. And whenever they comped them in, they had a bigger picture of him. And in the book, they were always, you know, slagging him off about the size of his head on the cover as well. I'd actually noticed that as a kid. Yeah, it's all that. I don't get this thing where people say, you know, oh, kind of Kraftwerk, it's kind of humorless, it's robotic. They're the same people that say the Smiths are depressing. You know, I don't see kind of humor in it.
Yeah, the irony in it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Did you speak to him about Kraftwerk, or was that kind of an untouchable thing? You didn't want to go there in case he didn't want to talk about it?
It's really, you see, well, I can't speak for the rest of them, but I have this thing where I've got this kind of abject fear of kind of becoming what I actually am, which is a fanboy. So whenever I kind of meet people, like, I don't really kind of bring it up or anything. I don't really, if it comes up, it comes up. The only thing I did bring up was we met John Fox in Dusseldorf, of all places, in 2016. And I just had to bring up Burning Car, which is my all-time favorite single. And it's the only time I think I've ever kind of broached kind of an artist's work with them when I've met them. And because I just had to know how he got that thing to kick like Zeppelin, using an ARP Odyssey, a bass guitar, and a CR78. And I just said, because that's all's in it. The less instrumentation you use, the bigger you can make something sound. Yeah. And that thing rocks. Like, that's nothing I've ever.
His last album wasn't bad either, was it? That he brought out last year, Fox.
But like, I mean, Kraftwerk, their albums in the 70s, before you could quantize stuff, before MIDI, before it, you listen to it and like the precision of it, and you just think, shit, that's just amazing. So how did they do that?
And transfer everything into tape as well, which is no tools, you know. So
amazing. And they still stand the test of time now, don't they? That's
one of the things we do as well. We don't. Whenever the only time we're using drum machines is whenever you hear something which is TR-77, usually going boom, boom, boom. That's when you hear that. That's a drum machine. Everything else on our records is Eugene, and he's playing. It's all played by hand. It's played to a click track, but it's played. It's all manual. And there's a looseness to it all. And even things like when I'm programming sequencers, and it's Eugene keeps bringing up, I'll always kind of throw it out a bit so that it's never exactly in time. There's always bits kind of slightly out of time. I mean, on the title track of Blue Wave, that's all played manually. The only thing there is a drum programming is where it breaks down after the big. Just before the what we call the Kraftwerk bit, where it gets all kind of, Eugene's playing along with the drum machine and that bit, the electronic drums, before he kicks in with the acoustic kit. But all the rest, the bass line, the synth, that's all that, the grooves all played by hand. And it is kind of loose. It's not clocked or anything like that. It's kind of, shouldn't be saying this. People are going to start listening to it closely.
When I'm playing to the click track, you can actually play around the click. You can play a bit forward, a bit behind, and you can put that feel in while staying on the grid, which is good, you know.
I agree.
This is a good drummer talking here.
But to be honest with you, a click is, when I play live and put the headphones on, the click is part of me. I don't even notice it anymore. I just
drive me mad.
yeah. So,
Oh man.
but it's not there
I'm
anymore.
not having Sean in my ear.
Yeah, you don't want.
Forget about
I'm joking.
I say your lyrics and choruses are really strong. Who's the main wordsmith of you guys? Because I know you talk about the recording the music in your studios, but who's the main lyricist? They're really good lyrics.
It switches between myself and Paula.
Yeah.
A lot of times. Something like
Probably do a bulk of it, Sean. And then I vary things, or else I'll come up with an idea, or I'll have written something and Sean, but Sean is particularly good at the choruses. I'm probably good at verses, and it works like that. But again, it's whatever works, isn't it?
No, it's really strong because I'm a massive. I mean, lyrics mean so much to me personally. Like, I think I still went one of the greatest lyrics I heard was Matt Johnson, and he simply said, "How can anybody know me when I don't even know myself?" I thought genius.
Great line.
Brilliant lyric, and I hear a lot of good stuff in your words, and I just thought, they're really strong, really good.
Thank you very much. I love your T-shirt, by the way.
I'll do you.
Yeah, really nice.
I'll send you the link later, Paul.
Very nice. I wear that. It's nice, isn't it?
I'm
actually too.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go get changed to put something else on because I feel left out now.
I didn't exactly get very dressed up in a polo and that. God.
It's messing with my head. Should've stayed in bed today. Let the music chase the world away. With my radio on. Radio on. Cut me to a different scene. Take my mind away.
the other reason me and Mark wanted to do this show is this. There's no more TV shows anymore. Like, I mean, I'm probably older than most of you on this call, but I grew up with Top of the Pops, The Tube, Old Grey Whistle Test. You know, there's only Jules, and it's 7 episodes a year. Why do you got any view on that? I can't understand why there still isn't a live music show that's on every.
I don't understand it. I don't even know it's #1 anymore.
No, me neither.
And I think there's so many different charts. I mean, yeah, I personally I'd love a few more music shows. It'd be great.
Yeah. It's something I said to Mark I'd love to champion. So I might.
It just feels now it's just more manufactured. It just feels like stuff's just thrown out and it's throwaway songs and you know, live and performance is a big part in getting to know the artist and the feel for it and how their image and all of that. I'd love more live shows, whatever way they'd be. But I think more music for sure.
Yeah.
Than all those shows and put on a bit more, you know, good music. There's plenty of good artists.
All that stuff that kind of we would have grown up with is all gone. One of the main reasons is everything now is corporate. Big corporates run everything. They control the entire music industry. Whenever, like up until even up until the 90s, and towards the end of the 90s, any kind of new movement came from the street. It came from a scene from somewhere, and it built up, whether it was drum and bass or whether it was, you know, acid house or whatever, or, you know, new wave or anything, electronic, synthpop. It came from Basildon, Sheffield, Dusseldorf. It came from a certain place. That's all gone. That doesn't happen anymore. There aren't any scenes anymore. And it was because individual people were able to, you know, look at the indie label explosion in the 90s. You know, people were actually doing it, and the majors, you know, were kind of left high and dry, and they had to kind of run to catch up with it. But at some point, at the end of the 90s and into the new millennium, basically everything's run by bean counters. They don't care about scenes. They don't care about new music. I mean, all they're interested in is giving people more of what they already know.
Yeah.
And the idea of innovation, anything kind of new or anything fresh happened, any kind of new form. So it's all corporate. Like, I remember that guy took over EMI. And, you know, he was a former accountant. He takes over EMI. And I'm like, here, you know, no. All these people, you know, haven't produced an album in 5 years. Haven't, you know, this isn't good enough. You know, we want, you know, a production line. And everybody up and left. Even Coldplay, right? I mean, up and left EMI. You know, and so they, you know, one of the most innovative record companies in the world. The Beatles, Radiohead, Kraftwerk.
Yeah.
You know. And they all their artists just walked because you had some bean counter flipping telling everybody what to do. Like they're all flipping battery hands. It's just like
yeah.
Well, I think record companies were prepared to take a chance like back. Well, we were never signed, but we spoke to a lot of record companies. But they were prepared to take chances with bands, and bands were allowed to develop. Where, I mean, even U2, say Joshua Tree was their fourth or fifth album. So in the current climate, they would have probably been dropped by Bowie, or October, their second album. They wouldn't have been allowed to grow to bring out the Joshua Tree.
It's funny you mentioned U2. On their first album, the first 3 U2 albums in Ireland are on CBS, in Ireland only.
Right. Okay.
What happened was the guy from CBS Ireland, who had originally signed them for the U2 3 EP, took it to the head office in London, CBS UK, and the head of A&R asked the guy, will this band make money in a year? And he said, probably not. And, okay, next.
The man who turned down U2. He's got to live with that.
He won't be putting that on his CV, I would have thought.
It would be great if there was even 30-minute shows. Like, I know BBC's before do some. I saw Annie Lennox there on a while, and it's like kind of this, I wouldn't call it scaled down, but like it wasn't like a concert. And then U2 did one with an orchestra, and like half an hour of an act doing that. There should be way more of that. I think, even if it's pay per view, whatever. But I think more doesn't have to be like a different version, not the concert version. Scale down, but like with some of the orchestra, some not that.
Yeah, I have this vision, Paula, of kind of, I don't know, something like Duran, and then a new band, and then you have a classic band like New Order, but then you have like Working Men's Club. So there's a new band. I don't know if you know those guys. They're out in, I think they're in Sheffield. Do you know them? Working Men's Club. Yeah, they're supporting New Order later this year. I really like them.
Yeah, they're worth checking out.
Yeah, well, you'd like them. But I'm going, why can't we get a show where you got, so the old farts like me go, I love this band, but I'm discovering new bands. The young kids go, I know this band. Oh, that's where it came from. So creating sort of connection.
Just very often new bands, I wouldn't say as good, they're not as much as the experience, but they are very good. It's just they're not getting the platform.
Exactly.
Okay, there's plenty of not good bands, but there are certainly, if you're doing a show like that, but I mean, that's all it is. It's down to sometimes just exposure.
Yeah. I mean, if you check out that we did, I don't mean to plug this, but if you check our top 30 albums of 2020, it's John Fox is on. There's all these other bands, and they're just not getting discussed.
Close your ears and just listen to your, say, New Order, and then listen to whatever, say, another band.
Yeah.
Music. So forget the, do I know these? Do I not? Just if you're into music and that type of person, there's definitely.
Yeah. Actually, on that front, are there any new bands and artists you're loving right now, you three?
I'm listening to Solomon Gray. I think they're I'm absolutely blown away with that album. And I'm listening to Air Review, who I think are American. I've been listening to all last year.
I thought you said Aerosmith for a minute.
No. Air Review are very good. Definitely Solomon Gray. Really
I love Solomon Gray. I saw a clip of them playing at some Whitechapel church or something, and it's just his voice is
great music there.
Yeah.
I discovered a few things thanks to Eric from Cult of No Name. He introduced me to a Russian band called Short Paris. They have a called Easter. Their last album, Easter, is excellent, but the single Shame, don't know what it is in Russian, it's all sung in Russian, is one of the best singles I've heard in yonks. Absolutely fantastic. There's also another Russian singer called Nadia, who she does like a 50s housewife, but there's something seriously off kilter about her music. There's something slightly, vaguely disturbing about it. It's kind of got a bit of a electronic kind of Kate Bush kind of vibe to it. And the last album, she's only got 2 albums. The second album's called Skulky, if I'm pronouncing it right. But seriously creepy cover. It just looks great. And there's also an Egyptian woman called Dina El Wadidi. She's got this incredible album called Slumber. And the whole idea behind it is absolutely fantastic. She made field recordings on, I think it was train journeys between Alexandria and Cairo. Made these field recordings, took them into the studio, and kind of assembled this whole kind of concept on it. It's a very short album, it's only like 30 minutes, but it's absolutely fantastic. It was a DJ out in Belfast, Davy Sims, introduced me to it. He called it the Trans Egypt Express. And I think to it, I had a listen, and it's kind of like Laurie Anderson, Kate Bush again, kind of Brian Eno kind of thing, but absolutely incredible album.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's called Slum.
What about you, Eugene? Anything that's making your ears happy?
Sean robbed my one there, but
What was that?
Sean introduced me to that, by the way, and I was just blown away by it. But I'm rediscovering the good old stuff, you know, that I wouldn't have probably heard of when I was growing up.
Yeah.
You know, Sean it introduced me to an awful lot of like even Zeppelin. I was never a Zeppelin fan. I was into Bonham as a drummer, but I never really listened to their music. I never heard an album from start to finish. So being in a band with Sean has introduced me to an awful lot of stuff.
Oh, we've lost him.
Sean's
Yeah.
and so you introduced me to another neon stainless steel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it all got too much for Eugene. He's just gone.
Does that every so often.
I've discovered an Italian band you might like. They're quite synthy, called Il Quadro di Troisi. I'll try and pronounce it properly. I'll send you a link. But that got some really good reaction from our guys. Very cool. I think one of them's like an acid house, and one's a DJ, and they've come together. And
Oh, I love house music.
But the journalist said you wouldn't expect this from those two because it's so unexpected. But very, very cool.
So Sean, I've read in interviews before that you like Tangerine Dream and that's Paula laughing.
It comes up every day.
I know.
Sean's like,
Yeah, I really, Tangerine Dream. Rubicon is my all-time favorite album. It's just.
That's just got about 3 songs on it, isn't it?
It's just got part 1 and part 2.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And then they followed the same year with my 3rd favorite album of all time, Ricochet, which is just part 1 and part 2 as well.
Yeah.
Those records are just incredible. I mean, I listen to them kind of even today with all my at the time when I was a kid, I didn't know how they were making these songs. I didn't know what they kind of were, but you know, I just knew it kind of. I really loved it. And years later, when I kind of was familiar with the technology and the instruments, and I still don't know how they did it. It's all feel and it's all improvisation. It's stuff that you can't actually write.
Yeah.
And it's a collaborative thing. It's not like someone's written something that brings it in and everybody else has to play it. You know, I've never kind of, I never know how anybody puts up with that sort of thing where one person writes a song or, you know, and everybody, here's how it goes, everybody plays it. You know, my interest evaporates within a couple of seconds whenever that happens. But I mean, yeah, the Tangerine Dream stuff, just absolute. I mean, legend doesn't even begin to kind of cover it. They're just absolutely incredible.
So have you heard the Claudia Brooken album with Jerome Froese on it?
No, I haven't heard it yet. No, it's one of the things I meant to check out, but I just kind of got caught up with a lot. I've got a list of things I have to.
Yeah, because as Edgar Froese's son.
Oh yeah, I know who it is. Yeah,
and it's pretty good.
He's the baby on all the early album covers. You know.
Oh, is he really?
Used to get a Dream album and then kind of look for the baby hidden somewhere on the cover, and yeah. I remember as a teenager, I used to creep my kid brothers out with it, kind of like going like, look at that baby's head floating in all this ink. And I go, what's happening? But I mean, these things pull you in, you know, all these things, like even kind of that kind of, you're looking for the kid, you're looking for the baby hidden somewhere in the sleeve. That kind of pulls you into the world. And another thing that they did as well, and it's probably why when I hear electronic music, I hear synthesizers, right? I never think of space. I never think of sci-fi. I never think of the future. I just think shiny modern, and I found a lot of Tangerine Dream stuff really pastoral, because I don't know if it was intentional or not. If you know any of their record sleeves, they always have a landscape or something in the sleeve somewhere. And in fact, Ricochet, is a picture of three dead trees in the sunlight, and that kind of drew it all away from. That made it kind of organic for me. So I find a lot of that kind of stuff, even though it's all synthesizers, quite pastoral and quite kind of relaxed. But you don't get all this being pulled into it with streaming. You just get a picture of a cover, size of your thumbnail.
Girl in a white dress, 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 waves from afar in an Italian car. Girl in a white dress, 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 waves from afar. When everybody you know has a better job than you, it doesn't pay to think about it, to tell the honest truth. When your life gets out of hand and you're not singing with the band, falling into slumber and the infinite, fed up waiting on tomorrow. How am I supposed to win today? When I'm feeling like
So welcome to our Hot Stuff section, the first one we've done this year, where we get to look at 4 great albums that Mark and I are loving right now. The first one I'm going to recommend is from Django, and it's their 4th album. It's called Going in the Dark, which I'm just loving a lot. They're kind of slippery to categorise, these guys, but this album is again a masterclass in sort of blurring genre boundaries in a very unobtrusive but I think highly effective fashion. They're really good song structures, clever deceptive rhythms. There's like a propulsive krautrock momentum and splashes of synths, which again is why I really like this. And while the songs on the album might be less immediate than those maybe on 2018's Marble Skies, the hooks are still there. I think they just take a few more listens to sink in. But that's kind of why I like this, because I'm finding the more I play it, the more I'm enjoying it. And it'll be great when these guys can play live again, because I know that this album played live will just sound phenomenal. I've got this copy from SI Records, our friends based up in Scotland. Hi guys, and they're doing a limited edition Glow in the Dark specials, and there's only 100 copies, but I do know they've got some. So if you go into their website, that's the SAI, A-S-S-A-I Records, and the boys up there, you might be able to grab one. But available in all good record shops right now. Check it out. And again, let me know what you think of it. Tell me if I'm on the right track. But I think this is great.
Why do I still keep score? I'm dealing with the devil now. Showing the front door. I'm gonna kick the devil out. Don't be blind, 'cause he's no more real than you or me. Not another superstition.
And the second album I'm going to recommend, perfect album for that Sunday morning or evening where you just want to lie back and just chill out and let some amazing sound sort of wrap itself around you. And this album is by the brilliant Steel Corners. The album is called The Last Exit. I heard the single off this on Rusty's Twitch TV show a while back and fell in love with it immediately. Really haunting, really sweet. I think this album, it's a lot smokier and... what's the word? A bit more subtle than the first 2 albums. I think, Tessa Murray, the vocal, I think she's sort of got quite a ghostly voice. She's compared quite a bit with Mazzy's style, so it's really tasteful. There's twinkly synths, there's languid guitar work, there's soft lilting percussion, and I think this album has just got such a nice feel. There's some cultural touch points that as you play it become quite obvious, but I'll let you discover that for yourselves. But yeah, check this out. It's just a nice, cool, mellow album. Definitely worth checking out. Really enjoyed playing this a couple of times now, and so that's Still Corners and The Last Exit. Check it out.
I've been watching a film that never ends. I've been crying. I've been trying to forget you.
My first Hot Stuff album choice is from Canadian band Actors and their debut full-length album It Will Come to You, released in 2018. The album offers a glance to the past, yet sounds absolutely up to date. Passionate vocals, catchy melodies, upbeat tempos and synth arrangements that intertwine with the guitars and driving bass lines. The album is lush, gloomy, atmospheric and punchy, all in equal measures, and it's all topped off with a crystalline production. What can I say? If you like dark, Ultravox, White Lies, Interpol, Cure, Depeche Mode sound, they can all be heard in this music. So, if those bands are your sweet spot, without doubt check this album out. It also sounds very good on vinyl, by the way.
Outside these windows, the moonlight cries, haunting dreams eternal, lost in your eyes. Your face being blind, it feels like
My second Hot Stuff choice is the debut solo album by Marnie called Crystal World, released in 2013. Admittedly, I'm a bit late to the party here, but I only discovered this gem myself recently. Marnie, by the way, is Helen Marnie from Ladytron. Recorded in Iceland, Crystal World is a pristine electro synth pop album which very much reminds me of a Church's record. The album explores a number of different styles with moody layered synthesizers, throbbing bass lines and bold drum sequences with dramatic and unpredictable choruses and melodies. Crystal World received positive reviews right across the board, and it just goes to show that there is great music out there outside of the charts if you go and look for it. Not that most people watching this channel, I believe, listen to the charts in the first place, I suspect. For those curious, there's also a second solo Marnie album that was released in 2017. Do go check it out.
oh, help me, please, why look away? Oh, can we stay together? Together, 'cause I am the hunter now, and I won't hear your cries, so dry your eyes.
So that's it for this episode of the Electronic Cafe. I hope you enjoyed getting to know Paula, Sean and Eugene a little bit better. The Tiny Magnetic Pets, great time we had. And I just want to say thank you to the three of them for being so accommodating, so nice. And actually, I know this isn't part of the Hot Stuff section, but if you're quick enough and going to Bandcamp, I'll ask Mark to put a link up. The new album, Blue Wave, there's a limited run of turquoise blue vinyl copies coming out, I think April, May. I think there's some left, so if you rush over to Bandcamp now, you might just be one of the lucky ones to get a copy. I'm certainly looking forward to receiving mine, as I know Mark is, as I know many of you will do. So yeah, check that album out if you hadn't listened to it already. It's superb. So again, big thank you to Paula, Sean and Eugene. Hope you enjoyed the hot stuff we recommended. There'll be more of that in the next episode, and part 2 of our fantastic interview with the Tiny Magnetic Pets. And then stay tuned, we've got some more great interviews coming up, and I'll be announcing those shortly. But things have been great here in the Electronic Cafe, and Mark and I want to thank all of you for watching, everyone of you that subscribed, and all your fantastic comments. it just makes all this worthwhile, because we're doing it just to, make people hear great music. That's why we did the show in the first place. So let's keep doing that together. And again, thank you for all your support. It means a hell of a lot to the two of us. Cheers, guys. See you next time on the Electronic Cafe.
See you again next time. Take care, and please don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget, check out part 2 of our interview with Tiny Magnetic Pets.